Sudeep is a rich and spoiled businessman who is used to getting everything he wants. His charm makes all the women around him fall at his feet. One day, while practicing at a shooting club, he spots a beautiful woman and goes to her to offer help. The man holds her by the waist and teaches her how to handle the gun. Then the woman leaves and says that she would like to meet him again. Across the city of Hyderabad, Bindu is at home working. The young woman lives with her sister-in-law and specializes in making jewelry and other miniature art pieces. While she is working on a new project, the neighborhood loses power. Looking out the window, the young woman spots Nani, who is on the roof of his house watching Bindu. He realizes that she was trying to use the moonlight to see the piece she was making and decides to help her. Nani then runs into the house, grabs some aluminum foil and a flashlight and goes back to the roof. In this way, he manages to light Bindu's window so that the young woman can work. Minutes later, she closes the window and goes to sleep. Nani smiles and his brother, angry, asks when the man will forget that girl. Nani has been trying to win her for 2 years, but Bindu always ignores him. Nevertheless, he still believes that one day he will manage to win the heart of his beloved. Days later, Sudeep throws a big party at his mansion to celebrate his birthday, and one of the men he plans to do business with shows up there with his wife. To the businessman's surprise, he discovers that the woman he met at the shooting club is married to this guy, with whom he has just closed a contract. In the bar, while talking to his partner, Sudeep tells that there has never been a woman who has not fallen in love with him. According to the man, every woman he has ever tried to win has fallen at his feet. During the night, Bindu works on her miniature art, but during the day she volunteers at an NGO that raises funds to care for underprivileged children. While she and her team are thinking of new ways to raise donations for the NGO, Nani shows up to make a donation of 15 Indian rupees. While talking with Bindu about where that money will be invested, Nani sends a message to the young woman's cell phone, complimenting her beauty. However, as usual, she ignores him and goes on acting as if nothing happened. Just then, Bindu's sister-in-law shows up to inform her that Sudeep Construction is making a big donation and suggests that the girl go there to talk to the director. This way, maybe she can raise money to help more children in need. Bindu finds the idea interesting and goes to the company's office. When he sees the beautiful young woman waiting outside his office, Sudeep orders his secretary to let her in. She talks to the businessman for a few minutes and the man signs a check for 1,500,000 rupees, equivalent to approximately $19,000. Bindu thanks him and is extremely happy, so Sudeep asks to become a member of the organization. As a gift of gratitude, the young woman gives him one of her micro arts. That same week, businessman goes on a visit to the NGO and helps distribute materials to the children. After the charity event, the man invites Bindu to join him for lunch. While they look at the menu, the young woman receives a message from Nani, letting her know that he is also at the restaurant. Seeing the young man going to work on the other side of the establishment, Bindu invites Sudeep to sit at another table so that she can be close to Nani. While they are eating, the businessman realizes that the girl keeps looking at the young man who was cleaning the restaurant's pool and becomes enraged. After lunch, Sudeep takes Bindu home in his car, but the young woman spots Nani coming up behind her on his motorcycle and decides to stop halfway to go to the street market. Instead of simply leaving, the man decides to follow the girl and discovers that she left him only to meet Nani. Seeing the two together, Sudeep is overcome with jealousy and creates a plan to take revenge on the man, whom he considers a rival. After work, Bindu leaves the office and picks up her motorcycle to leave. However, she finds that she is out of gas. Since it is late, it will be difficult to find a gas station, and walking alone to her home can be dangerous. This being the case, she decides to send a blank message to Nani, as she knows that the young man will find her as soon as he sees her notification. As expected, within a few minutes, he appears and Bindu claims that she sent the message by mistake. However, Nani realizes that the young woman is lying and soon discovers that she sent the message because she was afraid to go home alone. The man then accompanies her on her way to her house, and despite his efforts to get the young woman's attention, Bindu continues to ignore him. Seeing the girl coughing, Nani breaks into a warehouse to get a bottle of water. But before he leaves the money on top of the refrigerator. They enter the church to say their prayers before heading home, and Nani continues her mission to earn Bindu a smile. However, when she arrives at the door, the young woman walks in without even saying goodbye. She feels inspired to make a new artwork in honor of the man and shows him the pendant she made. When he goes across the street to talk to the young woman, Nani is captured and some men start beating him up. He doesn't understand why he is being beat up. After all, the man doesn't even know those guys. Then, Sudeep claims that because of him, he was unable to win Bindu. Upon hearing this, Nani orders the man to stay away from her or else he will end his life. At this point, the businessman becomes enraged and beats the young man even more. While Nani is about to be killed, he receives a message from Bindu. The girl wanted to know where he was. Hearing the sound of the notification, Sudeep picks up the young man's cell phone and reads the message. She then sends a new message, in which she claims to love Nani. At that instant, after reading what Bindu has written, the man decides to take the young man's life and steps on his neck until he breaks it. Since she cannot reach her beloved, Bindu tries to call him, but the young man can no longer answer her. She then decides to leave a voicemail where she apologizes for making a fool of him for the past 2 years. Finally, the young woman states that she loves him and asks him to go and find her soon. When Sudeep and his men leave, Nani's soul finally leaves his body and ends up on a leaf, where insect eggs were deposited. The next morning, while driving on her way to work, Bindu spots a crowd of people gathered together and decides to stop and see what is going on. She then finds Nani's body and discovers that her beloved is dead. The young woman doesn't show any reaction. In fact, she is in shock, as she cannot believe her eyes. 10 days later, those insect eggs hatch, and among them is born a fly unlike any other. This insect is the reincarnation of Nani, and when he tries to fly like all the other flies, he realizes that his wing is caught in his body. Suddenly, a strong current of water invades the place and Nani has to run to avoid being hit. While running, he manages to shed his wings and flies away from the place. His next challenge is to survive in a world of giants, in which he could end up being crushed to death at any moment. He spots a little girl playing with soap bubbles and takes the opportunity to have some fun too. The fly ends up inside one of the bubbles, until another child tries to eliminate him. However, Nani manages to escape unharmed, but gets caught in a tennis ball. A player throws the ball and the hitter throws the object away. During the flight, the insect breaks free and falls into an apple. His next challenge is to escape from a bird that starts chasing him. After entering a house through a small hole, the fly manages to lose the animal. Tired of fighting for its life, the insect goes to cool off and drinks some water. However, it ends up falling into the jar, which is then filled with ice and sugar. When he is about to be swallowed alive, Nani spots Sudeep and realizes that he has accidentally ended up in the house of the man who took his life. The man remembers everything that happened the day he died that led him to be reincarnated as an insect. Determined to survive to get his revenge, Nani struggles to climb the wall of the glass and manages to escape. He then attacks Sudeep, but his blows don't even tickle him. When the man spots the fly, he just strokes it and manages to throw it away. Just then, Nani finds the micro art that Bindu gave to the businessman as a thank you for his generous donation, and quickly flies off to visit the girl. He comes in through the window and tries to get her attention, but the young girl ignores him. While Bindu is getting ready to leave, Nani continues trying to be noticed, but the girl loses patience and pushes the fly away. When she comes out of her room, the insect goes after her and sees her sister-in-law complaining that the young woman has been working all day. In addition, Bindu has been doing housework, and she hates even doing the dishes. The girl then reveals that she is keeping herself busy to try to forget the death of her beloved. Later, while Bindu is working in the office, Sudeep appears and states that only when the young woman forgets about Nani can she be happy. Bindu begins to cry and the criminal tries to calm her down. Seeing that man with his hands on the young woman's shoulder, the fly becomes furious and gets in her ear. The girl is startled by Sudeep's reaction, but the man says that everything is fine. Soon after, other volunteers from the NGO show up and the businessman decides to leave. Nani goes after him and lurks, waiting for an opportunity to get rid of that criminal. As Sudeep relaxes in his sauna, the fly begins to torment him. As the man moves to try to get rid of the insect, the wheels come loose and the wooden box begins to move, causing it to slide toward the pointed towel rack. He narrowly manages to dodge it and fits his head into the space between the supports. Startled, the businessman calls out to one of his employees, who helps him out of the box. When the man is free, the fly appears again and Sudeep pulls his towel off his waist to attack it. He runs, without clothes, after the insect through the house. Some investors were in the living room and, seeing the company representative in that state, they decide to leave. Days later, the man invites Bindu and the other NGO employees to his office. Sudeep tells that he will meet the Minister of Education for a meeting, and if the young woman could talk to him, her organization could get international recognition. Bindu accepts the invitation and prepares to travel with Sudeep the next morning. Upon hearing this, Nani devises a plan to sabotage the trip. The fly spends the entire night harassing the businessman in order to prevent him from sleeping. In this way, he would not be able to wake up in time to catch his flight. Sudeep tries everything to get rid of the insect, but no matter where he goes, the fly is still after him. Hours later, when it is close to dawn, the businessman wraps himself in a sheet and finally manages to sleep. A short time later, the phone rings. Bindu informs him that she is at the airport and the flight will take off in 30 minutes. Sudeep then immediately gets up and asks his driver to take him to the airport. However, he gets stuck in the traffic jam and Nani goes to torment the traffic warden. The man tries to get rid of the fly and the drivers understand his gestures as a signal to move forward. Due to the misunderstanding, the vehicles move forward all at once and get stuck in traffic. In order not to miss the flight, Sudeep gets out of his car and rents a vehicle from the nearest dealership. When he is on his way to the airport, he calls Bindu to say that he is arriving and the young woman states that the flight is delayed, so he doesn't need to hurry. After hanging up the phone, Sudeep spots the insect beside the steering wheel and uses the smoke from his cigarette to send it flying. However, Nani does not give up and hitchhikes with a police car to return to the vehicle where the criminal is. At that instant, the fly flies into his eyes, causing a serious accident. Sudeep loses control and the car flips over. The vehicle comes to a stop on the other side of the road and hits a truck head-on. However, the airbag is activated and the man suffers only minor injuries. Due to the accident, the windshield is completely covered with sand, and Nani takes the opportunity to leave a message for his enemy that he will take revenge. When he arrives at his home, a doctor visits him to check his state of health. After making sure that the man has not suffered any serious injuries, the doctor applies a sedative on him and leaves. Minutes later, Bindu appears and Sudeep tells him that a fly is chasing him. Upon seeing the young woman, Nani quickly flies toward him, but she takes an insecticide and shoots him. Still, Nani keeps trying to talk to her and is attacked again. Minutes later, Bindu leaves and the fly watches her from the garden as he tries to survive the poison. The moment she leaves the mansion, the young woman accidentally turns on the sprinkler and the water makes Nani get rid of the insecticide. That same day, Sudeep goes to see an insect expert to find out if a fly is capable of taking revenge on a human. Upon hearing this, the university professor mocks him and claims that all this may be a figment of his imagination. Finally, he suggests that the man should see a psychiatrist to confirm that he is not crazy. The businessman returns to the scene of the accident in search of the windshield where the fly wrote that it would take his life. Upon arriving there, Sudeep is approached by a macabre guy who invites him to accompany him, but the businessman orders him to leave. The sinister man then states that terrible things will happen in the near future and soon Sudeep will seek him out. The next morning, after recovering, Nani gets up and flies to Bindu's house. When he gets there, he finds the girl crying and uses her tears to reveal that he is Nani. The fly crawls over the drops and the young woman is startled to realize that her beloved has been reincarnated into an insect. She allows the fly to climb on her hand and asks how he died. The insect lands on Sudeep's picture in the newspaper and Bindu understands that the businessman was responsible for Nani's death. The fly then reveals that the man did this so that he could be with Bindu. Now that she knows what really happened, the young woman decides to help Nani eliminate Sudeep once and for all. She uses her ability to produce microart to make a protective suit for the fly. This way, it will no longer have to worry about being attacked with insecticide. With the new special outfit, Nani keeps trying to eliminate Sudeep, but the man always manages to survive. Then the fly begins to intensify his training. Besides working to increase his strength, he does sit-ups and various other types of exercises to increase his physical conditioning. The insect uses Sudeep's own cigarette to start a fire in his room, but his employees show up in time to save him. Sudeep then places some poison balls on the table, which serve as fly bait. However, instead of eating them, Nani throws the pellets into Sudeep's drink, and the man is distraught when he realizes that he has drunk the poison. To complete Nani's costume, Bindu makes small metal claws, which the fly uses to cut its enemy. While Sudeep is drinking a flaming drink with his friends, the insect attacks him, causing the man's face to go up in flames. To put out the fire, he must dunk his head in an ice-covered container. One day, while watching the businessman's house, Nani notices that there is a small cannon in his living room, which is pointed at the sofa. So the fly gets the idea to put gunpowder inside and use the cannon to shoot Sudeep. Bindu tests this plan in his house and the idea works. Now Nani needs to take, little by little, the gunpowder to put in the cannon. The insect uses a small basket to transport the powder, and after a few trips back and forth, he manages to put enough gunpowder in it to cause the explosion. Finally, the fly attracts Sudeep's attention near the cannon and the man throws a metal sphere inside, believing that he can get rid of the insect. However, this was all part of Nani's plan. After the first stage of his mission is completed, he takes the match that one of the maids used to light the stove and takes the toothpick toward the cannon. However, before he could throw the match inside, one of Sudeep's bodyguards shoves his body in front of the cannon and covers the exit with a paper ball. In the days that follow, the businessman turns his mansion into a veritable fortress. The man hires a team to block all possible entrances, making the place impossible for any insect to invade. When Nani finds out what happened, he tells Bindu and the girl decides to go visit Sudeep with the intention of opening a hole so that the fly can enter. The young woman then approaches the window and uses a coin to pull out one of the screws. As soon as it invades the house, the insect attacks the businessman and uses its metal claws to cut his skin. Seeing the blood running through his shirt, the man asks Bindu to leave and says he will find her soon. While Sudeep and his men try to find the insect, Nani escapes through the same hole he entered. The next day, the businessman and his partner go to attend a meeting with potential investors. Sudeep puts on a helmet to enter the meeting, expecting the fly to attack him. His partner pulls off the helmet and the man begins the presentation of his new project. While he is talking, Nani appears and Sudeep climbs on the table to try to catch him. The fly lands on the bald head of one of the investors and the businessman slaps him. The assaults continue and Nani intentionally causes the man to attack his investors. Faced with that situation, one of the businessmen calls the income tax inspector, who will soon storm the office. All the company's money was in the vault and would be taken away, so Sudeep rushes to get his fortune out of there. While he is typing the password, the fly appears and the man starts tapping on the keyboard. Since the password was entered incorrectly several times, the safe is locked. Sudeep tries to use a solder to melt the door, but Nani strikes again and the safe is pierced by flames. Seconds later, the bills begin to burn. When the businessman finally manages to open the safe, all the money had been consumed by fire. Desperate, Sudeep returns to the scene of the accident, looking for the sorcerer he found there earlier. The businessman asks for the man's help, who accompanies him to the place where Nani was killed. Once there, Sudeep discovers that the fly is the reincarnation of the young man, and everything begins to make sense. They both go to the mansion, where they perform a macabre ritual. At the end of the ritual, an evil spirit possesses two birds that were outside the house. The animals begin to chase the fly and Nani must lose them. One of them ends up being doused with wine and when it passes near the fire, its body goes up in flames. Nani flies into a pipe and the second bird chases after him, but gets stuck. At that moment, the bird that had been burned gets up and starts chasing the fly again, but Nani lures it into an socket and, after stucking its beak in it, the animal is electrocuted, causing a short circuit. At that moment, all the doors and windows are locked, but the fly manages to get out in time. Sudeep and the sorcerer get trapped by the smoke inside. Accidentally, the man knocks the witch doctor down and he ends up dying with his abdomen pierced by a metal bar. Seeing the businessman about to die, Nani celebrates his victory and warns Bindu about the death of his enemy. Minutes later, Sudeep's partner shows up and manages to rescue him alive. If he had been stuck there any longer, the man would have died from all that smoke. While talking to his partner about the damned fly, the businessman finds the place where the insect is entering. Upon viewing the recording of the day, he received a visit from Bindu. The man discovers that it was the girl who opened the hole to allow the fly to enter. Since he is without any money, Sudeep decides to brutally eliminate his partner. In this way, he will be able to get the insurance money. He then goes to Bindu's office and asks the young woman to accompany him. The woman says she has an appointment, but the criminal pulls her by the arm and leads her to his car. Nani goes after them and when they arrive at Sudeep's mansion, he shows the recording to the girl. When she realizes that she has been discovered and her life is in danger, Bindu tries to attack him with a knife, but the businessman holds her hand and blocks the attack. He uses the girl as bait to lure Nani and his plan works. The fly appears and lands under the man's feet. When Sudeep steps on the insect, Nani lifts a needle that was on the ground and pierces the criminal's foot. Bindu takes the opportunity to hide and the businessman tries to shoot the fly, but ends up causing a power outage throughout the mansion. He uses his night vision goggles to find the fly and destroys the entire house trying to destroy it. In the midst of this chaos, the cannon ends up being thrown far away and the little paper ball comes loose. Nani then takes one of the cannonballs and throws it at a bare wire, causing a large short circuit throughout the house. Just then, the chandelier breaks loose and falls to the ground, releasing several shards that fly towards Sudeep and pierce his skin. Next, Nani picks up the needle from the ground and tries to pierce his enemy, but the man picks up a magnet that was next to him and uses the object to capture the insect. Sudeep finds Bindu and uses the shard of glass that was stuck in his face to cut off one of the fly's wings right in front of the young woman. He doesn't intend to finish his evil plans anytime soon. Instead, the man forces the young woman to hold the needle and pierce the insect. At that instant, Nani spots the cannon and has an idea. He allows Sudeep to pierce it with the needle to have the opportunity to communicate with Bindu. The fly then reveals his new plan to end the criminal's life and the girl claims that she will help him. Nani rubs his body in the gunpowder and Sudeep asks Bindu what Nani is saying. She tells him that the insect said it will burn him before it dies and the criminal decides to put an end to it. Sudeep picks up a box of matches and Nani runs toward the fire, falling directly into the cannon. While watching the insect's body disintegrate, the criminal is hit. The sphere then destroys the gas valve, causing a large explosion that consumes Sudeep. When the fire goes out, Bindu, who is hiding, appears and finds only Nani's wing falling off. Days later, she makes a necklace and puts the wing on the pendant. On the way home from work, a guy on a motorcycle appears next to the young woman to attack her, but Nani, who has been reincarnated again in the body of another insect, attacks him with his needle. It seems that the young man is back to continue protecting his beloved.